The Inuvik-Tuktoyaktuk Highway is an all-season road that opened in November 2017. It connects the communities of Inuvik and Tuktoyaktuk. It took about 4 years to construct, and it provides a lot of opportunities through connecting these two communities, through increases in the potential to access healthcare, educational opportunities, and economic prosperity. The main objective of this project was to create a biomonitoring program to study the cumulative impacts of road development on stream health, using a suite of standardized methods for sampling biotic, physical, and habitat measures that could be related to fish populations, as well as water chemistry variables. Our goal was to use representative metrics of ecological structure and function, and it's been critical that we've involved local stakeholders throughout all phases of this project so that the monitoring has the potential to continue past the timelines of the current funded project, and so that the developed toolkits throughout the project can be used across other projects or to address additional concerns in the region into the future. Some environmental concerns included increased sedimentation caused by erosion along the side of the road, especially during high flow events in the spring and fall, permafrost thaw in the summer causing further road slumping and erosion to occur. In addition, there was evidence of redirected flow paths along the highway and drainage issues with the culverts in the existing streams, all of which pose a threat to stream health, aquatic ecosystem functioning, and water quality.
Every time we see something that's not working properly, or if we notice something on the highway like the culvert, the water's there but it's not draining, so we usually take a flashlight and flash in it, and a good percentage of the time they're collapsed, like the culvert's collapsed. There's no way of water to even go through it. So we've seen that a few times already, and it's only, the highway's only been 4 years.
When the guys were out with DFO, at one time they went to a creek and it was murky, the top of the ice. They were wondering what it was. They thought it was just from the creek, but the guy said it was from the dust. It was right on top of the ice there in the creek.
We noticed that some of the lakes were just like, they're next to the highway, there was just a film of dust on the lake. Like just that, where it should be ice and snow, it's just brown. But we started thinking, what's that doing to the ecosystem, like maybe the fish, eh? And with the highway, we started noticing that there's, at different times there's permafrost exposure. Ground just, or land or ground, or just become a slump and there's permafrost there.
So these events have been known to pose a threat to a number of ecological services within streams, including biodiversity, the insects that support healthy fish populations, as well as water quality health, measured through water chemistry, and modifying the actual habitat in streams that fish are using along the roadway. So the goal of this program is to educate anybody using the Inuvialuit lands and the ITH to educate them on their fish management plan, as well as to look at impacts for fish habitat within the streams or water bodies adjacent to the highway. So as part of the Aquatic monitoring program, there are a number of monitors from Tuktoyaktuk and from Inuvik, and this has been a very beneficial part of the project in terms of allowing us to study sites along the highway and collaborate in meaningful ways.
When the position came out for the hunters and trappers to start monitoring fish along the road, and this program started even before the highway was built, I'd go to meetings with the hunters and trappers about the alignment of the road and knowing which lake has fish, and thinking that, when the highway does come in, that tourists might start fishing out some of these lakes that we know have fish.
So we use the Canadian Aquatic Biomonitoring Network protocol, which is a standardized protocol used throughout Canada to measure impacts of disturbance in stream systems and measure stream health. So for this program, you use measurements of water chemistry, water quality to look at things like nutrients, metals that are found in waterways, as well as looking at in-stream habitat measurements to try to characterize how these systems may have changed due to disturbance, and using benthic macroinvertebrates as an indicator for ecosystem change. So after the preliminary season in 2019 of site selection and surveying the area, we worked with the Amariac monitors to do some sampling in 2020. However, due to the COVID pandemic, we gave some virtual webinars and some unofficial training opportunities, and this led to the first Indigenous-led monitoring season of this program. And it was a highly successful season with water quality being collected, as well as the installation and collection of data for water level, the in-stream temperature and conductivity over the summer months, and installation of some of the bioassays, namely the cotton strips, to measure decomposition in these streams. In the last year of the study, 2022, we were able to work with the cabin crew at Environment Canada to give a certification program to the monitors.
With that course, it really opened my eyes, not only mine, but I guess all the monitors. You know, when we're out in the land, when we see a creek, we went to Hans Creek a few times before the road, and it was just like Hans Creek. And I never knew what was underneath the rocks until we started doing this. Seeing a lot of insects, doing a lot of kicking and rock counting. I never did do that.
Aquatic insects, specifically benthic macroinvertebrates, are great bioindicators for environmental or ecological assessments because they're representative of the conditions in a freshwater ecosystem at a specific location, and they can better show cumulative impacts and are representative of a greater temporal scale than a single water quality grab sample. So they're quite frequently used in bioassessments as bioindicators because they have a wide range in sensitivities to disturbance. So the type of insects that are present at a site are usually indicative of the general habitat quality and the disturbances that may occur at that site. They're also quite widely abundant across freshwater ecosystems, so they're easy to sample. They're a key part in aquatic food webs as well, so they represent an important trophic level that helps sustain healthy fish populations, and they're quite frequently used in assessment methods across the world, so the methods that have been developed to study them are quite refined.
Not knowing what larvae really was. It's actually fish food, huh? And to see so much of it in one area. And when you think about you just in one little spot, you're only doing 50 yards of it, and you're thinking, this creek is 4 kilometers long.
All the creeks that from here to Tuck, it has so much to do with husky lakes, and it's important. Husky Lakes is like a sacred place for us Inuit here in Tuck, where we go there every spring, April, May, do our fishing.
We chose, in the preliminary year, 2019, 3 sites between Inuvik and Tuktoyaktuk, and 3 sites between Tsiigehtchic and Inuvik to study. And in 2020 and 2021, we expanded this program to include 10 sites overall between this overall gradient. And in terms of methodology, we used an upstream-downstream approach in which the upstream site was considered the reference or least impacted site. So this should represent an area that did not have impacts from the roadway. And the downstream section was representative of how the roadway could impact the stream. So these were our impacted sites.
We looked at upstream and downstream comparisons of both water quality and the benthic macroinvertebrate communities. We didn't find any irregularities in water quality. Nothing fell below or above the Canadian water quality guidelines. We didn't find any differences upstream or downstream for nutrient concentrations with regards to the road. No differences in other water quality parameters like pH, alkalinity, conductivity, up or downstream from the road. And then as a result, we didn't really find any differences in benthic macroinvertebrate communities. Richness levels, diversity, abundance, and EPT percentage were equal, both upstream and downstream from the road. We did some further analysis into the benthic composition. There's no differences in benthic composition. Nothing really shows any differences between upstream or downstream communities from the road.
And we also did some work on invertebrate drift and invertebrate or insect subsidies from the riparian zone into streams, which represent a key energy source for species, drift feeding fish in the area, such as Arctic grayling.
I looked at where most of the growth is coming from, or potential growth is coming from for these grayling. Within the boreal streams and the tundra streams, the most predominant food source is actually the benthic macroinvertebrates from the stream bed. They made up anywhere from 60 to 63% of the available energy to them. Within boreal streams, you have a significantly higher amount of energy available from terrestrial sources, so invertebrates falling into the stream, which makes sense with denser riparian vegetation and vegetative overhang, causing more terrestrials to fall within the stream. In the tundra streams, I found that there's a higher available energy from upstream lengthic sources, so zooplankton amphipods from upstream lengths. It's because the tundra is a lot more interconnected with lakes than the boreal. And it kind of calls into question if there's differences in diet with the grayling between these two regions, and how important that lake to stream interconnectivity is with tundra streams and grayling residing within.
Overall, I've been very happy with how this program has rolled out, both in terms of the data that we've collected, as well as the collaborations that we've formed with the monitoring groups in the ISR, and the capacity we've been able to build to start to tackle some of the additional community concerns that have come out over the last few years, one of which would be the beaver range expansion into the ISR across streams and in particular impoundments that may affect fish communities.
Where I grew up in Tuk, the coast, we didn't see much beaver.
I think the community itself here is so dependent on fish. You know, when the thawing comes in the springtime and people here are so used to fishing, and they start in the thaw, they start saying, where's all the whitefish? And some people are saying that, and they could be right, that, you know, the beavers are, they got a play in it now. The beavers are plugging up the creeks, and it's harder for the whitefish to come down.
We are now tackling some of these other community concerns with help from the monitors through a collaborative effort of using some of the same protocol and expanding some of this protocol to target things such as mercury accumulation in food webs from basal energy sources to fish. The data that's collected for this project also has the potential to contribute to much larger biodiversity monitoring programs. So what we collect throughout this program can help fill the gaps in the high data paucity that Canada has throughout the north in terms of biodiversity in freshwaters. Why is it good to continue?
For my grandchildren, if I tell them, your dad had worked down here before, and look at the fish you're getting now. We work with science, we know what we're trying to do, what we did, and hopefully, you know, it'll be there forever.